The subjects of today's episode are a variety of devices used by guerrilla troops in order to injure, maim, and kill the foreign armies that decided to interject themselves into the lives of the locals. Both innovative and devastatingly dangerous, these contraptions were cheap, fairly easy to make, and a new type of warfare that most soldiers had never faced before. Made of objects they could find in homes or around their villages like bamboo, hardened balls of clay, wood boards, bricks, logs, leftover bullets, nails, wires, cans, and even insects and reptiles. All used in a cavalcade of carnage that we'll put in a countdown format. Today we cover Vietnamese booby traps. I'm Kevin Young.
And I'm Dan Horrigan.
And this is Torture. Okay. I know we've both been wanting to do this one kind of for a little while. It kind of strays away a little bit from what we normally do. But I think every once in a while that's okay to do something a little different. But
yeah,
I know when we
no, this is definitely one that's been on my thing. I've seen.
Well, when we first
started
talking about doing this show, we had both brought up, let's talk about some of the stuff that they did in the Vietnam, War, and I was figuring, fuck it, we might as well just get to it now, get it over with. So
I should have done a different name at the start there, and I regret not doing.
What name did you want to do?
So I was going to say Private Pile, but I forgot to.
Yeah, I forgot.
So yeah, so this is Kevin Young, and this is Private Pile.
There you go. This is Torture. Okay. So before we get started on the actual subject of the show, we have to shout out Kinda Hit Your Vape for leaving a 5-star review on Apple. And they say, and this was by far the best headline for a review you could use. Hostile meets Mr. Bean. 5 stars. That's great.
Yeah.
Not your average true crime podcast. Absolutely awesome. These guys put humor where it doesn't belong, and it's glorious. Educational, gore-loaded, hilarious, and sick. What more can you ask for? One listen and you'll know if this is your thing or not. I'd love to see Torture collab with Jack Luna from Dark Topic or Kenton Opp from 1159 Media. Not just real-time cases, but graphic history, robust science, and in-depth research, all compiled into a well-told and riveting stories. I listen to everything on the public feed and subscribe to their Patreon. Thank you guys for the wild and unsettling ride. Well, thank you for the review. We appreciate it. We are doing literally everything we can.
We will put the humor wherever you want it.
Just tell me where. I'll put that. I'll stick that humor wherever you want it.
Humor traps.
Shove it right up.
That's what we are.
So like I said, this episode is going to be a little different from how we normally do. It's going to be kind of a countdown of the most terrifying, most painful, most innovative, deadliest booby traps used during the Vietnam War on mostly American troops. Yes, there were other countries fighting: South Korea, Thailand, Australia, New Zealand, about 36 others. But none of these countries took the casualties that the Americans did, mostly because we had so many fucking troops going over this. Like everybody was going to Vietnam. So, you put many people in, you're going to have that many people die. So New Zealand lost like 350. Australia lost about 500. South Korea lost like 4,000. But we lost just south of 60,000 troops. So,
wow.
Yeah. Definitely the biggest foreign casualty of the war. Now, most people think of guerrilla warfare, ambushes, and disease as the main killers during this war. Firefights with an enemy you can't see in the thick of the jungle, and gunshot wounds becoming infected, diseases transmitted through various biting insects. But from the beginning of 1965 until mid-year 1970, about 11% of all the deaths and 17% of the wounds suffered by U.S. Army troops in Vietnam were caused by booby traps and mines. But 1965 alone, 70% of the U.S. Marine Corps casualties were caused by mines and booby traps. So they definitely changed the way warfare was done. Kind of like how Americans did during the Revolution, our revolution. We
were watching the movie, the Mel Gibson one,
Patriot.
What's the name of it? Yeah, we watched that recently.
Yeah,
and turned it into guerrilla warfare and stuff like that. That's how we, the Irish, beat the old good old.
When you're
British
a smaller, underfunded army, you can't just go out onto a battlefield with the enemy because they're going to blow you out of the water. We knew that.
Yep.
The Irish obviously knows they can't just go stand out on a field with the British military and expect to, come away with a win. So you got to do what you have to do. You
throw potatoes at them.
That's right. Goddamn right. Like set them on fire and give them a toss.
Yeah.
Now
the trick is,
go ahead.
You parboil them so that they're soft on the outside but hard on the inside.
There you go.
So they see these potatoes coming, they think these are going to be soft. These are going to be okay.
Yeah, they're all steaming and everything. They're thinking, "Ooh, eat those," and then
you get spud in your eye,
right
and
in the
face.
Right in the face. He got it in the face. Now, it should be stated that Americans didn't suffer the most. Obviously, the South Vietnamese suffered more than anyone. 250,000 estimated troops and civilians being killed, mostly by firefights, outright murder from both sides. We're not...
it's covered
in
a couple of the different movies.
Yeah.
So it's...
Americans...
It's sad to see, and it's true, like when you see... Like, there's a very famous come get some scene. That's... I fucking hate that bit.
That doesn't all fall on the enemy. Sometimes that falls on, us. Bombings and mines and all that all go towards... And there's still people, about 40,000 people, since the Vietnam War have been killed by the mines and booby traps that have been left in Vietnam after the war. So it's an ongoing problem. But
they fill paddy fields and rivers and waterways and all sorts of things, and with mines. So hadn't they, like the places that, like, obviously most well hidden kind of places that you can imagine. So like there's going to be it's kind of like walking through the desert in Iraq. You're going to end up
you're going to hit an IED
eventually.
So I had mines actually in the countdown. It was actually number 1. And the more I searched into them, the more it seemed like the mines that most people were stepping on were either left by the French from when the Vietnamese were trying to get their independence between, and us.
Yeah. They dropped them and they surrendered. That's what they're happened with the French ones.
Yeah. So we true. So we planted a lot of mines there and stepped on a lot of mines. The North Vietnamese did put down a lot of mines, but again, they didn't have the mines that they had to set down were the ones that they stole from the French or found and put in the ground. But a lot was already left over. So I kind of took them out of the countdown. But keep in mind, mines did kill a ton of people and have still killed a ton of people.
Because I don't know, I got the mental image of the stereotypical Carl American soldier with the mine, planting it, and then just stepping straight on it and blowing himself up.
Well, they had these crazy ones that it was I think it was the M16s, I think they were, but you would step on them and it had a delay. So it gave you time to kind of come off. And after that delay triggered, it would blast into the air between a foot, 6 feet in height, and then it would explode.
Bouncing Betty.
Yeah, bouncing. Yeah, it was actually designed in the same essence of a bouncing Betty. So they took that design and tweaked it just a little bit, I guess, to make it even more deadly. But yeah, I was like, that's great. But then I looked, and those were mostly American mines. I was like, oh, god damn it.
And here's a little tip for y'all in Call of Duty: if you step on one, crouch, go prone. It'll blow up above your head. In real life, it doesn't really work that way.
Yeah, in real life, you'd still die. But in a game,
Call of Duty be okay though.
Yeah, there you go. So the South Vietnamese, they didn't really get hit by near as many traps so much back then as foreign militaries because they kind of knew the area, they knew where to avoid. So many times brigades of troops would get either South Vietnamese citizens or troops or North Vietnamese prisoners to escort them through known booby trap hotspots. They have very specific ways of marking what trap, like the way they had bamboo laying on the ground, or why the leaves just simply bent with a stick through them laying on the ground would tell you what type of trap was coming up. So they knew what to look for. Depending on who your escort was, could be a good thing, could be a bad thing. Depends on, what side they're on and how much they want you to die.
I've seen some of these traps and
yeah, no.
I don't have a good escort.
They're not
like,
fun.
oh my God. No.
Now, I could go into a 5-episode long diatribe about how and why the Vietnam War happened and the cover-ups, lies, secrecy found in the Pentagon Papers that fooled the American public and even Congress into approving a war perpetrated by Secretary of Defense Robert McNamara and fueled by, among other things, the necessity for President Kennedy to get a much-needed win on the world stage after the absolute fiasco that was the Bay of Pigs, the sheer disdain America had for the Soviets and China, and the fear of having yet another united communist country in the East and looking weak in the midst of the Cold War. But I won't. I promise.
Why not?
I won't. Well, because I don't want this to be 5 episodes long. That's different type of podcast. Mostly because many other podcasts and PBS documentaries have done that much better than I ever could. So we'll give you a very, very short intro into the war and then, straight into the good stuff. So this isn't even the Cliff Notes version. This is if you bought the Cliff Notes version of the how to teach people about the Vietnam War based on the Cliff Notes version of the Vietnam War. This is what this is. So it's very, very condensed.
Yeah, before we kind of get into it, it's one of these things where I've watched videos of these in the past before I ever knew we were doing these and I've seen them in videos and then movies and documentaries, all this load of stuff, and it's one of those things where, like we've said repeatedly in the past about some of the torture devices that we've covered, where it's kind of like the simple thing that you see that just as soon as you see it exactly what it does, and that in itself would be enough when you're torturing a person to make them kind of go nope, and then therefore they may have never been used. The simplicity of some of the items in this, though, where you see them and you know exactly what would happen. But they did happen, and they were used. And it's just, I was sitting there, and I'll go into it later on, but I was like,
like the most complicated one that is built is like number 14 because it's so complicated. There's so many moving parts that have to happen for it to work that it's almost not worth it. But simplicity. If you're looking back at medieval torture, you're looking back at medieval torture stuff, and you see these overly complicated and elaborate things. More than likely, they were never used. It's people. They either put you on a rack or they just hit your fingers with a hammer. I mean, it was one of those things. But still, fun.
Yeah. It's like we were watching like an episode like Chuck, whatever, and they're going on about torturing people. And it's like we know how to get information out of you and all this stuff. And I was thinking like they were coming up with these mad ways, like they're cracking out this truth serum shit.
Yeah.
And I was saying to myself, I couldn't care who this person is. You whip out a fucking hammer, this guy's going to start saying, do something simple. You know what I mean? Stop being so over convoluted with this thing. If anything I've learned from doing this goddamn horrific podcast is that simple is always better.
Simple is always better.
So, fucking, what's his name that played Wolverine? Hugh Jackman. He got that right in that movie he did. Y'all know the one I'm talking about. The one
was it Prisoners?
I think so.
Yeah.
All he needed was a hammer and a room.
Yep.
That's all he needed. So that's all you need.
A ball-peen hammer to your pinky toe is really all you need.
No. To squeeze the pinky toe is enough for me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so pretty much after the World Wars, Vietnam chased Japan and France out of their country to be an independent nation. The North had friends like the USSR and China, and the South was going the Democratic group. The North and their friends wanted the entire country to unite under a communist regime, and the South wanted to stay free, kind of like Korea. Anyways, after long battles between the two sides, America, along with others, decided they couldn't risk yet another country falling under communist rule and decided to step in. Couldn't use the big guns or the nukes because then if they did, the Soviets and China would step in hard and have another world war. So the fighting consisted mostly of localized air raids and ground forces. In the end, the quote-unquote good guys, us, but really we weren't, lost. We headed home with our tails in between our legs. There is the synopsis of the Vietnam War.
Dr. Manhattan was not involved. And that's,
God damn it if he would have been. Man. That megalomaniac. How great. At least at some point he lives on the moon and leaves us alone. The Watchmen, if nobody's ever read or seen it. The show was better than the movie, I thought. Whatever.
But the show was completely separate to the movie, though.
I know, but it was still better.
It's a sequel to the graphic novel,
yeah,
as opposed to the sequel to the movie version of it.
Honestly, Jackie Earle Haley was the only thing I missed when I was watching the show. Him as Rorschach was the only thing I missed.
God, so good. Yeah. Anyway. Yeah.
Now, made almost exclusively by Vietnamese communists, otherwise known as the Viet Cong, booby traps were the ingenious way that the much poorer military used the natural resources and knowledge of the jungle to embrace the home field advantage. So, now we get to the good stuff. I give you the top 15 booby traps of the Vietnamese War, in my opinion anyway. Yes, now, if you're making a face like Tan just made, I know what you're thinking. 15, goddamn. We don't have a ton of info on these traps. I'll give you what I have, but as far as things...
Number 15, pokey stick.
as far as things like who invented it, how they invented it, and why... We don't know. It's just the Viet Cong came up with this bullshit on the fly. So each one should go by pretty quick, depending on how much we banter. There's plenty of blood and guts, blood and gore, so should be fun. Before I get started, it needs to be noted, not all these booby traps were placed just willy-nilly in the jungle or on paths. Many times, they were placed around known helicopter landing areas, so when the troops jumped out of the chopper, they would run straight into a trap of some sort. So you didn't even get to fight anything or anyone. You would jump off the chopper and then, boom, you're dead. Or impaled to the point where you can't do anything.
You just get this mental image now of a helicopter flying in, the old Huey, Fortunate Son blasting out the stereo system on it, and the boys all riled up. Mel Gibson pushing them on.
That's right.
They all jump out and
right into a hole.
I don't. Yeah,
right into a hole. Let's get
just
to Charlie.
Filled with lots of bad stuff.
Just, oh my god, my leg. Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
All right. So, Dan, do you have a fear of large insects, specifically the large stinging ones?
Yeah, I would say an irrational fear. There's nothing irrational about that fear. Get big, large, gigantic, stingy insect things are not nice. Yeah, like hornets and shit like that, and centipedes. Oh, mate. What? Like, who came up with those? Like, that's how you know God isn't real, people, is because no God would invent that. Horrible. The big ones, like, I don't care about the small ones. Both huge ones you see, like, in the fucking rainforest and stuff. Like, why? Like,
why do you exist? What is your purpose?
Why?
I said the same thing about mosquitoes. Why do you exist there? You serve no purpose at all.
They brought back the dinosaurs. That's why they were here. Did you not watch Jurassic Park, Kevin? Come on. They brought back the dinosaurs thanks to mosquitoes.
You got to draw that DNA out of the amber.
Every cloud. Anyway, sorry. Yes. So to answer your question, yes, pretty much.
Well, so the reason I ask is because of what we are starting off with. Number 15. And I feel like when I say number 15, there should be like some graphic from some like early 2000 show where the 15 comes up as number 15. Boom, boom, but I don't have anything like that. So here we go. Number 15, hornet traps. So it's pretty much just
nope.
hives of hornets or bees were placed along patrol routes and covered with a piece of paper that was connected to a tripwire. Now, once the tripwire was triggered, it would release the insects on the unlucky enemy soldiers. Now, if it was bees, those might not be too bad. You can actually survive quite a few bee stings. But if they use the aggressive Asian hornet...
Sorry, that's you're the guy from My Girl.
Oh, yeah. Unless you're Macaulay Culkin.
He needs his glasses. He can't see without his glasses.
Actually, my brother would probably die too. He's allergic, so he's got to carry an EpiPen around with him all the time in case he gets stung by too many.
Okay.
But if you got
apologies.
Yeah, if it was the aggressive Asian hornets, things could go really wrong. So a painful sting that could lead to other hornets to sting. That's what do they have? Pheromones in their sting. They sting you. It leads other hornets to come sting you. That's usually how you end up dying, is the sheer amount of toxin that's put into you. It delivers a toxin and an allergenic component that can lead to redness, swelling, and anaphylaxis due to a Hymenoptera venom. Now, the reason I have it as 15 is because, as terrifying as it can be, you never know what an insect is going to do. They may attack. They may not. So, the Viet Cong would usually use the hornet traps in conjunction with other traps set around the area. So when the tripwire was hit, the hornets would buzz and swarm, and the soldiers would panic and run off, usually straight into another trap.
With leopards. Or T-Rexes. Triggered my velociraptor trap.
It's just a sloth laying at the bottom of a hole. You have any food? Starts scratching on you with its 3 claws. Oh, fuck. All right. Number 14. Dan, will say you and your troops are walking along a trail, and you come to a bridge that goes over rushing water. You know to be careful, so you send out one man slowly to test out the bridge. Everything seems fine, so he waves you forward. The troops begin to cross. Yeah, the troops begin to cross. But once a handful of soldiers get to the center, you hear a cracking, and then a snap. And seemingly out of nowhere, the bridge gives way. You and your brigade fall into the water. For many of you, the quickly approaching river is the last thing you'll ever see. You've just been victim of the bridge trap. And they get so, creative with the names of these, by the way. Just to tell you. The bridge trap. You're on a bridge and it's a trap.
The wall trap.
So... the Viet Cong would find a bridge that would end up being used by foreign soldiers at some point. They would place sharpened bamboo sticks or metal spikes in the muck in the water underneath the bridge, just below the surface. Yeah, see, that's where it gets bad. And then they would cut through the bridge enough to make it flimsy, but not break automatically. You had to get some weight on there. Now, it's 14 mostly because the massive amount of prep work that had to go into it. You had to find a bridge that they were going to use. You had to cut through it a little bit. You had to get all the spikes under there. You had to make sure that they were deep enough to where they're under the water, but not so deep that once somebody fell, they would not hit the spikes at all. They even went, at some points, they would go as far as damming up a little bit on the sides of the river to make the river more narrow there to make the water level higher. So it would cover up the spikes. But again, if it's a high rainy season, people might fall in, might not even hit the spikes. If it's more of a drought time, then the spikes would be poking up out of the water and troops would know not to go over it. So,
well, I'm writing these down
for D&D.
Yep.
This is one thing I found with this show is that I'm always giving Dan
Bridge falls, hero dies.
D&D ideas.
Yep. Bridge snap equaled spikes below. That's what I wrote. That's pretty
okay.
Self-explanatory. That's what they should have called it instead of the bridge trap. Should have been Bridgey, Snappy, Spikey, Stabby, or something like that. Like,
that might have been
far more inventive.
Well, you got to remember it's the Americans calling them this. I'm sure they had much. I'm sure the Vietnamese had a much more elegant name for them. We just look at it and go, "Ooh, bridge trap." Ooh.
Yeah. It'd be like the bridge freedom trap or something like that. Freeing the bridge of its restraints.
Freedom prize.
Oil on the other side.
So, number 13. Again, you're walking along a trail covered in dirt, leaves, vines, watching for tripwires and large holes. But it's not always the large body-size holes you need to watch out for. Because while you're looking one way, Dan, you put your foot down, or your entire leg, down into a hole covered with leaves. Now, searing pain runs through your foot, ankle, and lower calf, and you're having a very difficult time pulling your foot out of the hole. You've just been victim of the bear trap. Now,
I was going to say, the shoe trap.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, same thing.
I know this one, actually. Yeah.
Well, the Viet Cong did use actual bear traps at some points if they had them, but that's not what we're talking about. These traps were a form of a pit trap. So the Viet Cong would dig a hole. There's a couple ways they could do this. They could either dig a very small hole, just big enough for a foot, and put a board over it and cover it up. Very inelegant. That was a really fast way to do it. If they had a little bit more time, they would dig a hole maybe a foot or so deep, 18 or so inches long, 12 inches so wide, so a foot and part of a leg could get down in there. After the foot or so of depth, they would dig a smaller second hole, just big enough for a foot to be wedged tightly into. On the bottom of the larger hole, there would be placed a wooden board, a thin wooden board, with spikes or nails or whatever driven through it on each side. Usually 4 or 5, good and rusty, covered in fecal matter, urine, poison from plants or animals. The spikes covered in shit and piss and poison will become a common occurrence through this, just in case you're wondering. So I'm not going to keep repeating covered in shit and piss. Just assume that everything that has nails or spikes has shit or piss or poison on them.
Or both, or all of the above.
Yeah, they're all doing
a lovely little cocktail.
It's all at the same time. Now, the hole would then be covered up. So when a soldier steps on the covering, his foot would go through, break through the board, and go into the smaller hole. Now, the force of the foot would also force the board halves up, and the nails would then embed into the ankle and calf of the soldier, and forced in even further as the foot gets wedged into the smaller hole. Now, this usually isn't going to be something that would kill you unless you get a really bad infection and you can't get it to stop. But what this did would give the Viet Cong time to attack, because the whole regiment stops to help their friend out, and the Viet Cong's just sitting there waiting. They come out and they get you. So
pew pew pew.
Yep, it's a small booby trap that leads to a much bigger problem.
I've seen a video of one of those where it was the same idea of it, but it was the exact same concept, but slightly more convoluted in the way they obviously had time to construct this thing. It was exactly,
right.
And it was like they saw the evidence that was made out of like a stool or something, or it was like a camper table that they obviously had, and they went, right, we're moving out of this area, we're building this thing, and by fuck, it was horrible looking. It was like one that you could see they took their time with it. It was one of the ones that again that was recovered, and if I can find a video, I'll send it on to you, but it was pretty rough. Like, again, you could see straight away, and like they kind of push a stick down to it to show the mechanism of it coming up. It was like, it was rough.
These things
very
are
rough looking.
And even if you go see the pictures, and I'll post stuff on Instagram for each of these, but even if you go see the pictures of just the real quick thrown together ones, and they demonstrate them for you, they still look absolutely terrifying. It's like, this is gonna hurt. Obviously nails in your foot, it's gonna suck. Unless there's an infection, it probably won't kill you, but holy shit, are you going to be in some fucking pain for a while. Especially if you get wedged in there.
Disabling.
Yeah.
Ugh.
All right, number 12. Dan, you're walking again down a trail covered in foliage. Have you not learned your lesson yet?
Not yet, no.
You take a step and you feel something under your foot as you put pressure down. But by the time you realize it's too late, board flies up and hits you in the leg or the groin or the stomach. You've just been victim of the spike board. Again, creative with these names, because it's exactly what it is.
Kind of like the rake or something. Like it's like fucking Bob and
that's exactly
Sideshow Bob and Simpsons.
That's exactly what I have on here. Simple name for a simple device. Think Sideshow Bob and his hated rake, constantly stepping on the fingers and getting hit in the face.
Right, so the Sideshow Bob trap. Okay,
that might as well be. Yeah, that's what we'll call it, the Sideshow Bob trap. For any of you that have never stepped on a rake, I would encourage you to try it once. Try to do it slowly once and slowly bring the rake up. I guarantee the first 5 times you pop yourself, at least in the shoulder, if you put your head to the side. I've done it more times than I can count. It fucking sucks. So change the fingers of the rake to a board, and the rake itself to a board with spikes driven through it, and that's pretty much what the trap is. Soldier steps on what is called the treadle, or the board that is placed perpendicular to the rest of the board at the bottom, or the fingers of the rake, the opposite of the spike side, and it would fly up straight into your leg or torso, or if the board was light enough and long enough, right into your face. Super simple.
Wow.
Super easy to do.
Yeah, that's
one board, 2 boards, spikes.
It's like a little seesaw type thing.
Pretty much.
Nearly,
There was another kind that was more like a seesaw. Had a pit dug underneath it with a board with like an axle almost going through the middle of it, so you'd step kind of down in the hole a little bit and it'd fling it up into you. But I think just the elegance and the simplicity of just a board with a piece of wood with spikes in it hitting you. That's why I decided to put that version.
That's pretty messed up.
Yeah. Number 11. Now, just like with the bear trap, as you're walking, your leg goes into a hole. Only this time, there's no real pain. Maybe some scratches, but that's about it. So you're thinking, okay, got off easy. They must have broken this one or it's not working right. So you quickly go to stand up and pull your leg out of the hole. That's when all the pain hits you. Several points of pain in your ankle, lower calf, because you just walked into a Venus flytrap.
That's what I was going to say. Is it a Venus flytrap? Yes. When I've heard that before.
So this style of trap is called a box trap. Essentially, it's a small box with spikes attached to it, but the spikes aren't in the bottom of the box. They're attached to the sides near the top, and they aren't in a fixed position. They can move a little bit and kind of hang downward at a diagonal angle. So the box is put in the hole in the ground and covered. When a soldier puts his foot in, the foot isn't immediately hurt. But when he goes to pull it out, the spikes catch and are forced into the skin. Can be incredibly damaging. Soldier doesn't know how to get his foot out, tries to quickly pull it out, does more damage, and sometimes the spikes were barbed, so they do even more damage when you tried to pull them out.
It's the equivalent of putting your head through a fence.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
You try to pull it back.
Get it back because of the ears.
You're just having it's catching, so your ears are the spikes in this case.
Pretty much.
Bam.
What I thought of the trap in Saw. I think it was either Saw 2 or Saw 3, where the woman puts her hand up inside the box to grab the antidote.
Yeah,
and it goes to pull it out, and all the glass comes out.
The blades.
The blades come and start cutting up. Yeah, it's kind of like, it's the same principle as that. Now, obviously, they didn't use spikes and Saw. They used blades, but still, it's the same principle.
Yeah. I always hated that one.
Dan, I have a confession to make. I have
crabs.
Beard dandruff. So close.
So much worse.
I know. Look away, I'm hideous. All seriousness. All serious.
All serious.
All serious. Me serious now. No funny. No more. Frankenstein. No fire. Bad. In all seriousness, many of us men with facial hair have some sort of dry skin under their face fur. I have particularly dry skin, especially on my face, around my nose, my eyes, ears. That beard and mustache, they draw a ton of moisture from your skin in order to stay healthy, leaving the skin underneath sometimes dry, itchy, red, flaky, leading to the beard dandruff. And I struggled with it for quite a while. Struggled to, rein it in. Then I found thebeardstruggle.com. They use all natural products, never tested on animals, that your face, body, and beard will love.
They have day oils to protect your beard from UV rays and dirt and grime, and it keeps your skin from drying out. All the troubles the day can bring. And they have night oils to help moisturize and rejuvenate your skin and beard while you sleep. Not to mention, as of right now, they have 8 different fragrances. According to this.
That's what they tell me. That's what they tell me.
Do you want to know what they are?
I do. I want you to.
Ready?
I want you to pronounce them perfectly.
Okay. Here we go. Ready?
Okay. Yeah.
From Alfheim's Forest, which has the scent of woodsy, leather and spices, to Hjonir's Home,
Close enough.
scents of greenery, amber and musk, to Valhalla's Gates, with essences of citrus, amber, sandalwood and vanilla.
And right now I'm using the Aesir's Triumph, which I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, which has the scent of sweet incense, tobacco, whiskey, and cinnamon, and my wife absolutely loves it. Of course, I haven't gotten one from them that she hasn't loved, so. And if you can't choose, just get the sample pack, which comes with 6 of their mainstay scents and 5 milliliter bottles of nighttime elixir, so you can decide what is best for you. But they have so much more than just oils. Balms, wax, shampoo, conditioner, butters, cologne, natural deodorant, skincare products, heated beard straighteners, combs, brushes, shaving kits, growth kits, merch. List goes on and on and on. No matter what kind, length, or style of facial hair you have, the Beard Struggle has the products you need.
You get a free gift for purchases over $50, and you get another free gift for purchases over $100, and all orders over $65 get free shipping. You have a 90-day money-back guarantee, so you really have nothing to lose. And be sure to use our exclusive coupon code TORTURE19 at checkout to get 19% off your entire order. That's TORTURE 19 at checkout for 19% off your entire order.
Torture19 at checkout, or click on the link in the show notes. TheBeardStruggle.com. Do what's right for your beard. Do what's right for your face. All right, top 10. Dan, you're stalking your enemy. You see movement in the jungle and decide to take a quick look just off to the side of the trail. You squat down, move quickly into the thicker brush, then you fall. Your foot hits something, and then pain blasts through your sides. You look down and see metal bars with long spikes attached have pierced your body. You just fell into the side closing trap. Again, perfect on the names. I'm sure they could have thought of something better, but the Indiana Jones trap, I don't know, the Star Wars trap or the sides. Of course, Star Wars wasn't around yet, so I guess they couldn't have named it that. So this trap could be small enough for a leg or a foot, or large enough for an entire body. So, as usual, a hole would be dug. If it's for the entire body, the hole would obviously be large and deep. Slats would be placed on 2 sides of the hole, with the obvious spikes set in them pointing, towards one another. Both slats were fastened to guide rods made out of iron and were tightened with heavy rubber bands. And I'm thinking like bungee cord style rubber bands. And when a soldier fell through, displaced the rod that were holding the slats apart, they'd spring together and pierce through the body.
Ouch.
Yeah. So
that's pretty... Yeah.
That's kind of an elaborate one.
I was trying to get the mental image. I'm going to Google this one now because I have this kind of mental image in my head now and I'm wondering if it's right. So It's called the sideways.
The side closing trap.
Side closing trap. For sale? What? Oh, damn you, internet. Filthy bat. Oh, that's actually... Oh, hold on, is that the right one? Yeah, there's the folding chair trap. If you Google that, that looks like it's very similar to the one I'm thinking of.
Okay.
I was thinking of the elaborate one that I saw with the foot going in. That might be right. If you were to Google that and you see it, there's I don't know if the folding chair is on this list.
No, it is not. But
then that's
but it is. It is quite a bit the same. I went through a lot of different lists and went kind of off the ones I found. This is one that I had not seen, but yeah, ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch.
That's, yeah. Ugh.
Well, we'll give that one an honorable mention.
Yeah, sweet. But yeah, that's pretty messed up. Anyway.
Oh, there we
right.
go. All right. Number 9. So you're walking along a trail. You're tired, hungry, so your guard has dropped a little. Some of your troops are getting a little careless. You all of a sudden hear a scream and look to the front of the lines. One of your fellow soldiers has an arrow sticking out of their groin and a tripwire at their feet. They have just been caught in a bow trap. Now, this was probably the most sophisticated, non-explosive booby trap. It consisted of long wooden board with a 3-foot-long bamboo tube attached to it. Inside their tube, there was an arrow powered by, again, a strong rubber band, which was attached to a catch at the bottom of the board. The catch was connected to a tripwire laid across the path. Arrow traps were usually placed at an angle at certain distances, so when a victim triggered the tripwire, it would release the catch holding the rubber band and send an arrow straight into the enemy's direction. Sometimes they were placed in the ground at such an angle that the leg or the groin would be targeted. Sometimes they just placed actual crossbows in the woods and pointed them towards the path by the tripwire, and they just get mid-1960s. You do not think, if you're going into war, what's going to kill you is going to be a bow and arrow.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, they're very much like the classic trap from the likes of Fallout, where you open the door and there's a shotgun.
Yeah.
There, a tripwire, and there's the shotgun there, ready to hit you. Like, actually, yeah, in Saw, similar thing. You had the shotguns up in the ceiling.
Uh-huh.
And then the tripwire, as soon as the guy went through the tripwire, shotgun shot.
Was that how...
Same idea, but with...
That was Danny
bows.
Glover that got killed that way, wasn't it?
No, it was his partner that got killed that way.
Oh, okay.
The first one. Yeah, the Asian guy, I can't remember his name.
Yeah,
we
I haven't seen
the
the original Saw in forever, but...
Yeah, it's pretty gruesome. But yeah, that's same idea, obviously, yeah, except with bows. A bit less... if anything, should they be a bit more reliable, I'd say, than leaving an old shotgun sitting out in the...
Yeah, as long as the rubber band didn't
the
snap,
jungle.
yeah, you're good.
Yeah.
And if you use the crossbow, I mean, as long as nobody else came across the bow.
It's true.
All right, number 8. Dan, you see a makeshift path going through the jungle. Just some of the grass and foliage have been stomped down through the trees, so you take a small group with you as you follow this new path. You walk through the trees for a few minutes, and then you hear a snap, the sound of a triggered tripwire. But before you know what hits you, a massive weight falls on you, and maybe some of your comrades, spikes piercing your flesh. You've just been hit by the tiger trap. You know,
rhythm stick.
So a lot of people think tiger trap's probably more of a pit. This was actually the opposite. So a tiger trap was a large, it was a large board or several boards attached to one another with spikes attached, pointed downwards. Then bricks and heavy stones were placed on the back of it, and the whole apparatus is lifted high into the trees, and a tripwire is set. And once the tripwire is stepped on, the whole thing falls straight down into the poor soul or souls standing under it, usually killing them.
I think Arnie did one of those in Predator. I think.
Trying to remember.
He did something similar in Predator. Like, there's a couple of variations that I know, because like I googled some of the stuff obviously when I copped on, so I could see if it was about stuff for media and stuff like that. And there's one of them that nearly looks like nearly like a sack but tree trunky type thing, and has a spike sticking out, which is what this is. You know,
pretty much, yeah.
Variation of it, and I think he did one, and I don't know. I'd have to Google the traps he did, but he did an awful lot of similar traps to the vehicle.
I just heard a story from Predator. I was telling my wife yesterday. So Jesse the Body Ventura, who is also in Predator with Arnold Schwarzenegger, he apparently goes to Wardrobe, and Wardrobe tells him that his arms, his biceps, are an inch bigger around than Arnold Schwarzenegger's. So Jesse Ventura, he's boasting about it. He's like, my arms are bigger than Mr. Olympia's. You know, he's telling everybody except Arnold. And Arnold comes on what they were interviewing him, and he goes, "They told him that because I told them to tell him that. I told them to tell him that his bicep was an inch bigger than it was, and mine was smaller than it was." So Jesse finally goes up to Arnold. He goes, "Hey," they go to the gym. And Jesse goes, hey, why don't we measure our biceps? And Arnold goes, you know what? We should. And we should put a bottle of champagne on the line for whoever has the smallest. And they measure him, and Arnold's biceps were 3 inches bigger than Jesse Ventura's.
Of course they were.
I mean, he's fucking Mr. Olympia, for fuck's sake. Come on. But Jesse Ventura is so full of himself that,
I think I actually saw that on, like, it was like the special edition features or something on one of the, because of Predator, like, behind the scenes. There's also a really funny scene in that when, the bit when Arnie is getting away from the Predator and he goes sliding down through all the bushes and goes flying out into the water. So when they're filming that, the bit that he's sliding down, when it shows him, like, in his face, there's a scene where it's, like, right in his face that's following him and he's just sliding. And he's actually only going down a thing that's about 6 feet long, and they just kind of keep reshooting it, like, and he's literally just going bloop bloop. But he comes out, like, Mr. Big Gigantic Tough Guy, and he's here smoking his Romeo and Juliet cigars that are like the same size as my car exhaust, going around, and he goes sliding down this thing. And he's like, next thing he jumps like, fuck. And he's like, he goes, I hit the one with the fucking thorns in it, and he has a thorn sticking out where obviously there was barbs, and he has this big thorn sticking out, he's cutting his hand and stuff. I just thought it was awfully funny, like, him going on like the whole big tough guy thing and blah blah blah, and he just like all the rest of us human beings, he hits his hand off a little thorn and he's like, whoa, like giving out about it. Poor Arnie.
Oh fuck. All right, number
Man
7.
up, Arnie.
Oh,
there's my camera. I thought it was over there. Man up, Arnie.
Number 7. Again, you're walking down a path into a town. You've learned to look for foot-size holes. You've learned your lesson. So you keep your eyes out. Then you hear what sounds like a gunshot, and one of your troops screams as the front of his foot has been blown away. You just came across a cartridge trap, also known as a toe popper. So,
yeah, filthy.
Cartridge traps were commonly used because the 4 components needed to assemble the booby trap were easily obtainable. Small bamboo tube, a nail, a piece of wood, and any caliber small arms ammunition. That's all you needed. So the bamboo tube would be positioned upright on a wooden foundation, and a nail would be placed through the bottom. Then the ammo cartridge was wedged into the bamboo tube so that the primer of the round just barely touched the tip of the nail. Small contraption was then buried along a foot trail with the round facing up, so it would shoot directly into the bottom of someone's foot. And when a soldier stepped on the trap, the pressure forced the primer to strike the nail, firing the round. Use a real small caliber bullet, it's going to put a hole in your foot. Use a shotgun shell, you can kiss the front of your foot goodbye. Or whatever part of your leg that your foot hits goodbye. Yeah.
See, the Vietnamese, I know they, like you say, assault rifle wise, use 7.62s because they had the AKs and stuff like that.
Sure.
And variants of it. If it's small arms for them, what they use, 38s? I think it was, if I remember correctly.
Probably, I wouldn't think they'd go as small as a 22.
Yeah, but so I'd say, like that. Yeah, that dude. Like, I'd rather not get the 7.62. Thanks very much. Like it's, and you can take your front of your foot and possibly your kneecap as it's passing by. It's,
and if you step on it with like your heel, it can blow off the entire bottom of your leg. So I mean, it all depends on what they have and where you step on it.
I think that. Yeah.
Number 6. So Dan, let's say you just took over an enemy camp, and you chased Charlie off into the jungle, leaving them and all their supplies behind. You order your men to lower the Viet Cong's flag and to search the camp for gear. Then all shit breaks loose when objects that the troops are searching through just start exploding. Nothing is safe with the treasures of war or the flag bomb. So, it's widely known that at the time, American soldiers loved to take trophies and flags from enemy bases. Now, one of the first things you would do at a brigade is to lower the Viet Cong flag and hold it up for pictures and raise the American flag or whatever other fucking flag you want to raise. So just before they would be ran out of camp, the Viet Cong started rigging the flags and anything else worth any type of value with grenades or small homemade bombs. Flags lowered or the valuables picked up, traps set off, bomb or grenade would blow, killing anyone in the area. So you think you get this big victory, and all of a sudden, people just start dying all around you.
Yeah, I can imagine the Vietnamese after Hightown and out of there running, and next thing you just hear that idiots.
just in the woods laughing.
Yeah.
In the jungle.
And then they stroll back in and retake their camp.
Pretty much.
Place their bombs back in.
Pretty much. So you don't always need a trophy every time you go somewhere. Just keep that in mind. Number 5. Oh, we're halfway. Well, 2/3 of the way through. This would be about the time where a TV show would be like, let's recap where we've been. We're not going to do that. So.
Previously on Torture.
So for the soldiers in the forest of Vietnam, it may have seemed as though the Viet Cong literally came out of nowhere, attacked, and then disappeared into thin air. And they're actually pretty close. But instead of thin air, they actually disappeared into the ground. So, and this is something my wife and I had a pretty good chuckle about last night when it comes to pronunciation. So, in the area of Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City, there were miles of tunnels dug underneath the cities and underneath the district. And some people say that they went countrywide. I don't know if that's true or not. But that's where the Viet Cong would go to kind of get away from everything during the day. They would hide out during air raids, sneak out at night. They'd take entire families, entire regiments down there to live.
Yeah.
But the part that was funny to me was technically it is pronounced Gucci district, the Gucci district of Saigon, but it's not spelled that way. It's spelled Cuchi. So I was telling my wife that the Viet Cong would go hide in the dark, dank tunnels of the Coochie.
Coochie. Nice.
My wife's like,
I was wondering. I didn't even take it that when I was like, one of the jokes I'm going to bring up is the tour of the Coochie tunnels. I didn't even think of that. And I didn't even register with me at first. And now I'm thinking about like, my God, like that is just.
I read it and I went, Coochie. It's like, oh fuck, how am I going to say that without us laughing like 5-year-olds? And then I realized we can't. I'm not going to be able to say it without us laughing like 5. So we might as well just do it. And then my wife's like, are you sure that's how it's pronounced? I'm like, I'm pretty sure I looked up, pronunciation. That's how it was spelled. So she looked up and she's like, oh, it's Gucci. There, I saved you from having to laugh like children. I was like, no. I'm still going to tell Dan
do it anyway.
Gucci. We're still going to laugh. But now we have the proper pronunciation.
Well, it's going to forever be known as the Coochie
the
tunnels.
Dark dank
I wonder
tunnels
what they
of the
smell
Coochie
like.
district.
Yeah.
My wife just screamed from the other room.
I have a few ideas of what they smell like.
My wife just screamed from the other room, "You're children."
Yeah. Well, guess what? Star Wars is better.
Oh, he says, guess what? Star Wars is better than Harry Potter.
Space wizards.
She screamed, "Fuck off." All right, fucking hell. So, these tunnels would be used as hiding spots, communication supply routes, hospitals, food, weapon caches, living quarters. And they were honestly just horrible places to be. They flooded all the time. They are filled with animals and insects. It wasn't good down there, but it was better than being bombed, I suppose. But eventually, the Americans, or whatever troops, realized that after being attacked, the Viet Cong would sneak down into these tunnels. So they started recruiting these what are called tunnel rats, which are like the smaller of the troops, give them a flashlight and a gun, have them go into the entrance of the tunnel and search out for anybody that might be down there or map it out or whatever. Killing anybody that they needed to. Well, these tunnels could, at places, be very small. Like, on your hands and knees small. Sometimes you would come across some bamboo braces holding up the ceiling of the tunnel. Well, sometimes they were holding up a little bit more, because when the soldier would go around or simply move the bamboo, what would fall wouldn't be the ceiling, but our number 5 in the countdown, snakes.
Nice.
Specifically, in this instance, the bamboo pit viper, if they were lucky, or the many-banded krat, if they weren't.
So, the many what?
Krat, or crate. Krait. Could be crate. I don't know.
Is that black and red, yellow? Oh, yeah, I know that one.
It is literally...
So there's a black and yellow and there's a black and white one.
It is the many-banded krait is literally the most venomous snake in all of Vietnam. And one of the most venomous snakes in the world. Where the bamboo pit viper is venomous and can do damage if bitten in the wrong place, the many-banded krait was extremely venomous and aggressive. It was sometimes called the two-step snake or two-step Charlie, because after a bite, you could only take 2 steps before you drop dead. This, of course, a myth, but it struck fear into almost all soldiers. You'd be down in a tunnel, all of a sudden, boom, one of these fuckers lands in front of you. It attacks, you got nowhere to go. You know, you can kill the snake, but what's done is done. But the tunnels weren't the only places you would find snakes. Large pits would be dug, filled with a variety of venomous snakes. Fall in, bit several times, and die a painful death, Ragnar style. Viet Cong would also walk around with bamboo pit vipers in their bags. When Americans would come after them, they would simply set their bags down and run off. Americans being Americans, they would open the bag to see what they had in there, and boom, you get bit.
Snakes, yeah.
But maybe the sneakiest way they used snakes was to simply tie them to trees around face or chest height and leave them with no food. So when a soldier eventually walks by the regularly aggressive reptile, now irritated and starving, the snake would simply reach out and bite you as you walked by.
Just for the crack.
Just for it.
For the hell.
Just for it.
Yeah.
You'd never fucking see it coming. You wouldn't even be looking out for it. Just boom, right in the face or in the chest. Literally the 2 worst places you can get bit. The face or the chest.
Yeah.
Because then it might only take a few
bloodstream.
Steps.
Yeah.
With as horrible... I don't know if you ever watched the videos, what happens when you put snake venom... like
into blood?
Yeah, on blood. How it just turns into a fucking jiggly ball. Yeah, that is in your body.
Yeah, I've saw it before where a guy did it. He put some of his blood into it was like a martini glass type thing, and then got a viper, and they're milking it, and he put it in.
Yeah.
And he sat there with it for a couple of seconds, and basically turned it out, and it kept the shape of the martini glass.
Yeah, it only takes
like imagine that in your veins, and I was like, that is
horrifying. Horrifying. It's up there with the centipede. Horrifying.
Yeah.
All right, number 4. Let's take a second to talk about one of the most readily available resources in Vietnam, bamboo. So, it's very dense fibers, and each bamboo cane give the plant extreme flexibility, allowing it to bend without snapping. And the Viet Cong took advantage of this well-known fact in creating the bamboo whip. So, pretty much it was just a bamboo pole that was attached to a tripwire and pulled back with as much tension as they could muster. The pole sometimes had spikes at the end, sometimes not. Obviously, spikes be covered in shit or piss or whatever. But the whip, the pole would be pulled back as far as they could literally pull it back, because you're not going to break bamboo by bending it back, especially if you soak it for a little bit first. So they pull it back, usually about chest height, and put a tripwire on it. And once the tripwire was triggered, whoever tripped it would be impaled by the spikes on the pole as it whipped forward. According to reports, the pole and its spikes could travel up to 100 miles an hour.
Nice.
Even without the
Imagine
spikes.
That poop flying at you.
Yeah. Even without the spikes, you got to think that thing hits you in the chest.
Oh, that's it. You're
done. That's stop your
that's
fucking
internal
heart.
bleeding.
Jesus Christ.
Internal bleeding right there. You've broken everything in all your internal organs.
If you're a little
basically.
shorter,
it's like getting hit by a car.
Yeah, you're a little shorter, it hits you in the throat. I mean,
yeah.
Or
it'd be like that bit in Die Hard 3 when they go down onto the boat and they swing down on the cable thing and it whips and hits the guy.
Yeah, it cuts him in half.
It's much thinner, splits him in half.
Yeah.
That would do as much as close as possible with a blunt object.
Yeah, it's not fun to think about.
Yeah, do you ever hit yourself in the thumb with a hammer? Yeah, you have.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go out and experience it, kids. It's a wonderful thing, right? But, that times 1,000 right in the ribs.
We have two homework assignments for all the listeners. First, go out, step on a rake, and then hit your thumb with a hammer.
Both at the same time.
At the same time. Sideshow Bob.
Do not hold us responsible for your mishaps.
And video it, and tag us in the TikTok.
Yeah.
Number 3. Okay, here we are at the top 3. So number 3, I kind of threw in there because just how devastating it can be, and the simplicity in it. Again, the simplest things are usually the best. And this is just so simple. Grenade in a can. It's just a grenade in a can.
Oh, yeah.
So, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's a grenade. Take the pin out, put it in a can that it fits tightly into.
Yeah, it doesn't release the spring mechanism then, yeah.
And then you set a tripwire to it. When somebody hits it, grenade's pulled out of the can, or the can's pulled off the grenade, and boom, blows. You could also...
I was expecting nearly extra shrapnel as a result of it as well. That'd be like... Ugh.
So you could also do this with 2 cans. So it could be constructed with a single can and a stake, or with 2 cans. And if they 2 were used, they would mount them on trees on either side of the path, and the tripwire running between them. You hit them, and then boom, you get it from both sides.
Yeah, that's like, just for people's reference. Though, an awful lot of people, I think, seem to think that grenades act like they do in the movies, where it's like a big fiery explosion thing, and that's not what grenades do.
Yeah,
you know, like they literally just like Mythbusters do a really good thing to do with grenades, hand grenades, frag grenades specifically. There's a reason they call it frag grenade. People's fragmentation.
Yep.
The whole point is that it's shrapnel, loads of little pieces. That's why you have little bumps on the old school American. Is that they're little bits that come off, separate out like that. I can't see my hand motions, but like in an outward.
All of our Patreon, the people who subscribe to our Patreon can see your movements, Dan.
Yeah, it's like the mind blown thing, you know.
Tim and Eric.
And it's basically loads of little pieces of stuff hitting you like shotgun blast style. It's not a big fiery explosion. So that coming out of a can on the side beside you, like even from a distance, would be maiming and devastating, not necessarily just completely killing. Like, but the explosion side obviously is pretty bad. If you had a grenade sitting in your pocket that blew up, like, I mean, you're going to blow yourself to pieces.
Yeah,
but
there's definitely
it's not the big fireball.
There's an explosion force behind it. You're not blowing up, an entire building with one grenade like you see in movies and shit. But you look at a grenade, you see all the ridges on there. Obviously, those 2 purposes: one, give you a little bit better grip when you're throwing it, and that is where it breaks apart, fragments. Because if you don't have those, there's a good chance it's just going to break apart in a couple pieces and not do its job.
So pineapple, is that what they referred to some of them as before? Pineapple grenades?
I have no idea. I wouldn't doubt it, but I have no idea. All right, number 2. We're getting there. The mace. Now, think of a bamboo whip and a tiger trap had a baby. Now, this, by far, one of the most famous traps and one of the most deadly and often used. It can be anything from a coconut to clay or a metal ball to an entire log. Put an entire log up there. Whatever you can get your hands on. But whatever it was, usually had long spikes to be attached, sometimes laced with shit or poison. And the whole thing would be hoisted into the trees.
And snakes. That
So-
were covered in shit and poison. And grenades.
I wonder if
that
they
were
covered the
shit and
snakes and
poison.
shit. just the,
That wouldn't surprise me. Like, they literally left the snakes living in a bag of shit. That's pretty what it was.
So, whatever it was, it had spikes attached. It would be hoisted up to the trees and attached to a tripwire in the pathway, just like tiger trap. But unlike the tiger trap, the mace was attached to a rope or a vine. So instead of just simply falling onto someone, it would swing from high up at a great velocity, and depending on the size of the mace itself, it could bury itself into one or many soldiers after they hit the tripwire. So if it's a log, you're thinking it's a big old log coming down, going to take out a bunch of people. If it's just a coconut or a ball of hardened clay with bamboo spikes sticking out of it, it's going to hit 1, maybe 2 people. But it's going to come down, and it's going to hit you, and it's going to hurt and or kill you, depending on where it hits. And these were used all the time. This is one of the booby traps that you had to look out for the most, because they were fucking everywhere.
I've seen pictures. It's not fun, kids. If you imagine a sea mine, everybody knows that. Most people would know what a sea mine looks like. The big balls with the thing sticking out.
Like what?
If you know what they look like, then you know what this looks like. Basically,
Under the
ocean, swinging down from a tree.
Think of Finding Nemo. The mines in Finding, where they got to swim around those with the sharks, except hanging from a tree.
It's pretty messed up looking thing. Like, yeah, it's one of those ones, right? You look at and you...
Well, if they had plenty of time, they would actually build them out of pieces of metal and put metal spikes on them instead of, clay or coconut or something like that. But anything they had laying around that could hold spikes that could hoist in the air and would have some velocity when it came down, they'd use them. All right, so before we get to our number one, let's do an honorable mention. A door trap. Now, a board with spikes pointing out, possibly covered in something, obviously, would be placed above a door when a soldier opens the door, and the board would swing down, either because of a tripwire or because the wire was attached to the door itself. And it would impale whomever stood in the doorway. Now, the only reason I didn't put this one on the actual list, gave it an honorable mention, is because once you've seen or heard of how one of these works, you know how to avoid them. You don't just open a door and walk through. You'd open a door from the side and wait for whatever happened to happen.
Yeah.
So, out of everything, fairly easy to avoid if you just don't walk through the door, right away.
Yeah, it's they're pretty horrific. Somebody was it you that sent me on a photo before of the trap in the staircase? Somebody sent me on a thing to do with a trap in the staircase where it was in an old house, right? Where these people went into an old abandoned house, and they were going to go up the stairs, and there's a photo of them standing off to the side, and you can see clear as day up on the staircase is a big wooden beam kind of going across with a big nasty knife.
Oh
on
shit!
The end of it. And you could see where obviously if somebody was to walk up that stairs, then they'd hit it and this thing would come down and hit them.
Right. All right, well, let's get to number one real quick. Punji sticks. Of course, punji sticks, also known as punji stakes, were extremely common booby trap deployed by the Viet Cong. The sharpened bamboo or wooden stakes were often coated in, again, feces, urine, poisonous substance from animals or plants, with the goal of causing an infection to the victim. They were so versatile that they could be used in almost any trap or simply set in the ground on the trail and just hope that a soldier falls into one. But the most popular and famous ways they were used were in punji pits. The punji sticks would be placed pointing upright at the bottom of a large hole before being covered with material that would camouflage them. When a U.S. soldier broke through the flimsy covering over the hole, they would land on the spikes at the bottom and suffer injuries to their body. Sometimes the covering wouldn't be just flimsy, but a large piece of wood, just slightly smaller than the pit opening, attached to a bamboo pole in the center, kind of like an axle. And it would be covered in grass that would actually be attached to the wood, not just laid on top. So once someone steps on it, the top gives way, then the top would rotate all the way around and recover the pit so it could be used again and again. Pretty ingenious. And when they are in times of ceasefire, they'd actually take more bamboo, put under the sides, so when you'd step on them, you wouldn't go, somebody wouldn't go through when they weren't in the middle of fighting. But that's our top 15 Vietnamese booby traps. Let us know if there's any we missed that you would like for us to talk about, or just put us on blast for not mentioning one that you really wanted us to that we didn't. Whatever. Dan, you got any?
I don't think we mentioned enough of the fecal matter that does be on these things.
There was shit everywhere. Just Vietnam was covered in shit the whole time. So just remember that. Dan, you got pop culture for us?
Yeah. Well, the traps themselves aren't in as many movies, I don't think, as they kind of should have been. If you had like I say, Saving Private Ryan of the Vietnam War, I think it would kind of be a bit more. But like notable films to do with the Vietnam War that are pretty good to watch are things like We Were Soldiers, which is really good.
Okay.
Hamburger Hill. I was going to say Born the 4th of July, but it has Tom Cruise in it. Good Morning Vietnam being one of the best. That has nothing to do with anything to do with bloodshed really or anything like that. It's Robin Williams' film. Well worth to watch. We already covered Full Metal Jacket. And let me see, Deer Hunter. Apocalypse Now being one of the most famous. And Platoon is great also. But like that's kind of some of the more kind of famous movies. But there is a thing you can watch as well, which was, I think this is the one I watched before. I need to rewatch it and double check, but either way, it's this guy who does these kind of tour things, whatever, and it's this guy Andy's Awesome Adventures on YouTube. He did a tour of the Gucci tunnels, but he also goes through stuff where he's showing off the traps that are in the area and stuff like that, which is pretty interesting. You know, so they have a bit of a tourist. Now it's a tourist trap. See what I did there?
Oh,
people?
yeah.
Yeah. So in Ho Chi Minh, now you can do these tourist things where they show you the traps and the tunnels and
you can go walk through the
all this stuff. Yeah. Yep. So if you want to take a trip down the Coochie train, you can go on down there and have a look.
There you go.
Yeah, obviously, you know, you can go Googling these things as well, but the punji sticks is one of those ones that keeps coming up.
Yeah, it was pretty much the number one on every single list that I look at. So I figured, and they're used in, the punji pits specifically, but they were used in so many different traps and so many different variety. The punji sticks were what they used in the my light just went out. Punji sticks are what they used in the bridge trap. In any of the all the spikes with the stuff falling down, like the tiger trap, the mace. Those are usually all punji sticks that are getting put in. Yeah. So it made sense. Like I said, I had landmines for number one, but the more I looked into it, I was like, nah, let's go a little more of the homemade variety, actual booby traps. Not just Of course, anybody who stepped on a landmine or an IED would probably say, well, those are actual booby traps, but I get it.
Yeah. Like the grenade in a can, I think, is probably one of the funnier names in the sense that, like, there's a big thing to do with canned food back in the day, like big push, like burger in a can, chicken in a can, potatoes in a can. It's everything in a can.
Yeah.
And now you have grenade in a can.
It's
just pineapple grenade. Just throwing out there, pineapple grenades are one of the nicknames for the Mark II.
Okay.
Mark II grenade or something. You know them when you look at them. It looks like all the segments from a pineapple.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I didn't know they were called pineapple grenades, but I know.
Yeah, it was a nickname for them or some shit. But everybody should watch this glorious film up to the point where they actually go to Vietnam and then stop watching it, because that's actually one thing I was going to touch on. Was it technically a form of torture that they did there? Was something that's covered in the movie. Is the whole thing of they would shoot somebody and leave them lying there bleeding out to try and get their buddies to come out and help them.
Yeah.
And they'd injure them so that they couldn't move and they couldn't get out there on their own. But somebody'd have to come out and then they'd shoot them. But people knew that was what they were doing. So that in itself is a form of nearly a mental torture where you're sitting there having to listen to your friend and her comrades screaming in pain, agony, and dying slowly, being shot in places that isn't going to kill them,
but incapacitate them.
A lot of pain.
Yeah. I also saw with I tried looking it up and I couldn't really find a whole lot about it, but with them leaving babies with bombs strapped to them in the middle of the roads, so a troop would run up, grab the baby, try to take care of the baby. Dogs, anything that somebody might run up and try to help, and then all of a sudden, boom. You're gone.
Yeah.
But I guess that depends on how absolutely ruthless that the enemy wants to be. Because we always, Americans would look at the foreign and go, oh, these savages will do anything. But, would they go as far as strapping their own babies to bombs just to kill an American troop?
Chances are there was a doll or something.
Yeah.
Or something made to look like there was like a baby there or something like that. Like, we've seen it before in movies and stuff where there's like a teddy bear with, stuff like that. So yeah, I doubt that they would have actually done it with a baby.
Right.
Yeah, that's a bit far.
It's a bit much.
Again, they would have used cats and dogs before they used babies.
Yeah. And I think a lot of that probably just war propaganda to bolster, approval for the war. Be like, oh, look how horrible these communist savages are. They're killing their own babies, so we have to go take over their country. But in reality, it probably wasn't the case.
Yeah.
Well, want to say thank you to our patrons and Inquisitor Willow Quinn Fowler and Executioner Jagamundi, and our newest patron, our very first torture noob, MX Sinister 26. Thank you guys so much. They have already signed on to our exclusive Discord, which once you join, you are on forever. So, there's that.
Yeah.
Please go follow us on our Instagram and all the other social medias. TorturePod @TorturePod. Email us, torturepod@gmail.com. If there's anything you would like for us to cover, or have any comments or questions. Quamments is what Chris Hardwick used to call them. Questions, comments, quamments. If you have any fan art, that'd be great. Rate and review, Apple, follow or subscribe wherever you listen. Head over to our YouTube page. We're doing little snippets or excerpts from the show where you can actually, see us. If you'd like to donate to the show, you can either do it on a link tree, which you can find on all our socials. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/torturepod, or you can go to our Patreon, patreon.com/torturepod, and subscribe. Got a bunch of goodies in there for you, exclusive stuff that other people can't get. You get our merch at redbubble.com/people/torturepod. Hint for our next episode. There is no age restriction on being a psychopath.
Okay. Cool.
Dan, you got any words of wisdom?
Something I heard before and I thought was actually quite funny was never try and put anything into your ear that is larger than your elbow.
Smaller than your elbow.
Nope. Larger than your elbow, specifically.
Okay.
Doctor's orders. Now, and then he also said, now try and put your elbow into your ear.
Try to put your elbow
which everybody tries to do. And he's like, that's the point. The whole point is you don't put jack into your elbow, into your ear.
Don't put anything in your ear.
Ever, because you can't see it. So you shouldn't be putting anything.
There's a lot of little
things
in your ear that you could do a lot of damage to if you put something in your ear.
Exactly, yeah. So don't put anything. He said specifically larger than your elbow for some reason.
It should be smaller, but
okay. This is exactly what the doctor said to me before, which I thought was really funny. Anything larger?
No watermelons, no BMWs, nothing larger than an elbow.
Yeah, I was going to say no coupes. Yeah. He said that as he pulled a Fender Stratocaster out of my ear. You see, that's what it was.
That makes sense. Ah, shit.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, Kevin fell.
No, my phone fell over because I have to do it for some reason. I have no internet on my computer now. I don't know, but the Wi-Fi's working fine on my phone.
Good.
I don't know. I'll have to figure it out. All right. Well, that's all we got. I know it was a little different than what you normally get, but hopefully you all enjoyed it. Take care of yourselves. Take care of one another, and we'll see you.
Bye-bye.